Hi, everyone. How do we know what ethical principles to apply in life? The ethical individualist has purely conceptual reasons for selecting an ethical principle. He tries to think out for himself the principles to apply in each situation. If for whatever reason you are unable to think for yourself, you will need to look to others for direction. And you can be sure there are many others who will be glad to tell you what to do. The naive person will trust those he considers smarter and more powerful than himself, and he will believe what they have to say without questioning. The willingness to submit and obey others is why authoritarian institutions exist and have grown to control much of life. It begins with the authority of family and continues on in the authority of state, society, church, and God. Society and politics will remain dominated by authoritarian leaders and institutions as long as there are enough naive people to follow and carry out their duty to obey. There are levels of ethical development. The most narrow-minded person will put all their faith in one particular person. He who is a little more progressive allows his ethical conduct to be dictated by a majority. When the conviction finally dawns on him that all these authorities are, after all, human beings just as weak as himself, then he will seek refuge in a higher power from a divine being. The lowest level of ethical development is to make one special person your moral authority. The authority of the moral leader is based on their outstanding character or knowledge. Titles such as the initiate of our age give Rudolf Steiner near infallible moral authority. Ethical individualism is not based on the wisdom of Rudolf Steiner. Ethical individualism is based on a science of freedom. In the philosophy of freedom, Steiner organized knowledge that was known by others in a way that laid the groundwork for a science of freedom. His presentation of this science was not very good. Steiner struggled like the rest of us with human weaknesses. Changes of text have been made only where it appeared to me that I had said clumsily what I meant to say a quarter of a century ago. The second level of moral authority is faith in majority rule. The collective opinion of a group is supposed to be wiser than the single individual. Ethical individualism is not based on the wisdom of a group. A community collective does not have ideas. Only an individual has ideas. What appears as the common goal of a group is usually the idea of a group leader who the others blindly obey. The third level of moral authority is faith in a divine being. To be convinced of something, the naive person must see it with his eyes and touch it with his hands. This is why a perceptible God was conceived. Believing, for example, that God appeared in the burning bush or walked among the people in human form, telling them with his voice so their physical ears can hear what they should and should not do. In order for people to believe, it was said that Moses saw God with his eyes in the form of a burning bush. Christianity became very popular with the story that God became a human in Jesus Christ. God was conceived as a man who spoke to the people. The people touched Jesus with their hands, proving he was real. Ethical individualism is not based on the wisdom of a divine being. The moral laws which the metaphysician regards as issuing from a higher power have been conceived by human beings themselves. The moral order is through and through the free creation of human beings. It is not the human being's business to realize God's will in the world, but his own. He carries out his own decisions and intentions, not those of another being. The highest level of ethical development for the naive person is when the moral authority is no longer an external voice of God, but becomes an inner voice of spirit. This is the inner voice of conscience. What was first sensed as the external voice of God is now sensed as an independent power in his own mind. The naive person speaks of an inner voice in a way that identifies it as conscience. One's conscience is a built-up sense of what is right and what is wrong. It is what makes you feel guilty or have a sick feeling in your stomach. Your conscience urges you to do the right thing. Ethical individualism is not based on the wisdom of an inner voice. Instead, it is based on producing our own moral ideas that we experience as an intuitive impulse to act. We are only free when we obey none but ourself. You can see how the human being is at the center of ethical individualism, and why it can be viewed as a humanist outlook. For ethical individualism, morality is a specifically human quality, and freedom is the human way of being moral. I'm sure that this video will be disturbing to many viewers. The intention of these videos and the philosophy of freedom is not to bring comfort, but to challenge your beliefs and be a wake-up call to freedom. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate your comments, and we'll see you soon with another video.